Thank you for showing up today. We're super excited to have this conversation and hope everybody is doing well. Now we're ending the season here. This session is called Young Agrarian Panel, Can Agriculture Be Viable? And it's featuring three panelists, Samantha Wynne, Donne Gonzales, and Baez. I'm Taylor Muglia. I'm the New Agrarian Program Colorado Manager, and I'm joined by Audrey Paugh. She is with the Valley Food Partnership, and she will go into, in just a moment here, more about their program as well. So, go. So just wanted to introduce myself. I think it's a good idea. This is a panel today, moderated, like I said, by myself and Audrey. I want to start today by just introducing the original idea for this webinar. So we originally got together. The idea was, okay, New Agrarian Program, see if, well, Creating Farmers and Ranchers That Thrive and New Mexico Acequia Association all have programs for young agrarians to get started in agriculture. We got on a webinar, we started talking, we realized that there were a lot of issues that all of us were facing, and not a lot of people get real about them. Like, a lot of people don't talk about money, they don't talk about the struggles, just different aspects of starting a career in agriculture. And so that was the whole purpose of this. So we just wanted to get these folks in the same room and just listen. So I'll kind of explain the New Agrarian Program. Marcos is our sort of representative of sorts. He was an apprentice back in 2019, correct? Yeah, that's right. And
yeah, that's correct.
Okay, awesome. So the New Agrarian Program is an 8-month apprenticeship. We focus on large landscape regenerative agriculture, so largely ranches. We do have some farms in there too, but we are actually accepting applications for the next season on November 1st. So if anyone's interested in getting a start in regenerative agriculture, particularly with livestock, head over to our website, quiviracoalition.org/newagrarian. So I will pass it off to Audrey. If you want to make an introduction and kind of talk about your program, and we'll pass it on to Donne.
Sure, thanks. Really happy to be here with you all and for everybody that's going to tune into the recording later. My name's Audrey Paugh, and I'm the project specialist for Cultivating Farmers and Ranchers That Thrive, which is a beginning farmer rancher program based in Montrose. We are funded through a 3-year USDA grant, and we are just nearly at the end of our first year with our first cohort, and Samantha is actually one of our first beginning farmers and ranchers in the program. And the program, CFRT, Cultivating Farmers and Ranchers That Thrive, seeks to support farmers and ranchers through access to holistic management education. We're in partnership with Holistic Management International. And then we also offer seasonal continuing education classes through various partners, and those are open to the public as well. And then we work on land access in partnership with Guidestone Colorado's LandLink program, trying to reduce the barriers for beginning farmers and ranchers to access land. And then in addition, we also have opportunities for paid mentorship and internships and matching to go along with that. And as I said, we are just completing our first year of the program, and applications for year 2 to start in January are open now, and you can also visit our website, valleyfoodpartnership.org, to find out more about how to apply. And with that, I will pass it over to Donne.
Sweet, thank you so much. It's wonderful to learn about what both y'all are doing. I have just really a few quick slides that I will share. So I am with the New Mexico Acequia Association. We are out of New Mexico. We are a very awesome program. We work on protecting acequias and land. And so an acequia is our natural ditch or waterway where we water our land, grow our things, and yeah, take care of our animals. Our mission here is to protect water and our acequias, to grow healthy food for our families, our communities, and to honor our cultural heritage. And Los Sembradores is an apprenticeship that takes part for 10 months. It's an intensive, and we are in person on the farm doing good work. We support each of these apprentices by also practicing at their home, growing gardens and farms in their community. And our program focuses on providing opportunities for rural and land-based New Mexicans who have connections and ancestral acequia systems. Yeah, we do really awesome work. This is going to be year 9 coming up, and we will be accepting applications in February. It is from February through December. Thank you.
Thank you so much, you guys. So let's jump into the panel. So if it might be confusing, Donne represents the New Mexico Acequia Association, but she's also one of our young agrarians on our panel today. So let's jump into it. I would love to do a round of intros. So why don't we go around and say with the panelists, your name, where you live, what farm or ranch you're on, and your position there. What do you do? So let's go ahead and start with Marcos.
Hello, everybody. My name is Marcos. I live in Colorado, and I work for the operation called Round River Resource Management. It was founded and it's operated by Lewis Martin. I have completed my 4th season there. As Taylor mentioned, I started as an intern through Quivira's new Agrarian program, and I have continued to grow and am currently serving as the director of production for the operation. That means I am managing the day-to-day operations of herds that can go up to 2,000 head of cattle. Other than that, I've also had the opportunity to start my own cattle enterprise within that business, and I have been able to continue to grow that while working for the operation.
Thank you, Marcos. We'll go on to Samantha.
Hi, I'm Samantha Wynne. I'm from Montrose, Colorado, and I'm part of the CFRT with Audrey's program. I'm the owner of Fresh East Farms, but we grow on the property of Western Heritage Farms and Ranch. So I manage our 5 acres, but then help in Western Heritage. They have 500 acres. So we just kind of all pitch in wherever needed. So my position's just, yeah, jack of all trades there.
You're primarily a vegetable producer, is that right, Samantha?
Yeah, so we do, and fresh cut flowers. So fresh cut flowers and vegetables are our main. We're also working towards grains. We're doing some trials in that area. And yeah, just like an education demonstration farm is where we're headed.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Donne, go for it.
Thank you. So again, my name is Donne Gonzales. I am from Chamizal, New Mexico. It is a small town in Taos County. I do have a family farm that is called Chicoyole. And so we are very Spanish native around here. We got very deep roots. My family's been here for about 13 generations. And what I do through the New Mexico Acequia Association is actually teach and work with apprentices about like why it's so important to farm, about how to be profitable and have a sustainable life from farming and selling those vegetables and just eating good food. Yeah, and I absolutely just love what I do. So I will end there.
Audrey, you want to take it in the next question?
Sure. So the next question we have is what role, this is for everybody, all the panelists, so what role does agriculture play in your life, and what is it that makes you so passionate about it? So whoever feels called to begin.
I can get it started. Definitely it has played a major role in my life. I do not come from an agricultural background, and I decided to pursue a career through my own discovery of regenerative agriculture and holistic management. And yeah, I've definitely made the decision that I was going to make a career out of it, and it has been a big part of my life since I have made that decision and been in pursuit of achieving those goals.
And Marcus, I kind of remember you also talking about how like you had a shift from, like city life to agriculture. So if you want to chime in on that at all at any point, I think that's an interesting piece.
Yes. Like I said, I do not come from an agricultural background, and after college, I was working in a very promising corporate job, but at the same time, I was not liking the lifestyle. It was not a good fit for me, and through that, I started doing my own research on ways to balance that out, and was looking into homesteading, and that's how I bumped into regenerative ag and holistic management, and just became obsessed with the topic. I pursued it on my own on a small acreage and learned through many mistakes, and that's where I really incited the passion of having impact on the land through planned grazing and the management of livestock.
Thanks for sharing that. Samantha or Donne?
Yeah, so like Marcus, I'm a first generation beginner farmer rancher as well. And so that role it plays in my life is the everyday, because the food, I mean, the connection to the food, the nutrient density, like I depend on all of that, right? And how I got into ag, I have a son who was diagnosed with autism on the spectrum, and they kind of said, like, hey, if you'll keep him in growing, his palate will stay expanded and that kind of thing. It kind of became a passion project for me. And it was like about March when I got that news, and it was just perfect timing. All the nurseries were putting out the plants. And so I was like, okay, well, here I go. And it became therapy for me and for him as well at first. And then the passion came later when I was trading out services to learn more growing practices. And so I got with an organic farmer and said, hey, I will help you with marketing if you can help me with growing. And then once I went to the farmer's market, I was hooked, and I knew that growing food and connecting people to their food was forever going to be a part of my life. And it is a huge passion and drive to be able to help feed your community. So that's where ag plays in our life. And I feel like it's in every aspect of what we do. And we feel very, dedicated to this land and the history to, preserve it and do what we can to help it for the future generations.
Thanks. And Donne?
Thank you. So I feel like it's been in my life as long as I can remember. I remember being like a toddler and just hanging out in my grandparents' garden and eating sweet peas. And so I grew up, went to college. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. Then I changed my mind and I was like, I'm going to beauty school. And then I changed my mind again. And I was like, I really want to be a farmer because it's where I feel the most like at peace. It's really healing. I feel like I was doing weeding and like just working in my family garden when I had this huge epiphany. And it was like exactly where I had to be. Like, this is what was healing. This is what would make sense. And so I grew up knowing like how important they were, but I didn't know how to market. So I went to an apprenticeship and learned how to like market and how to make money. And that's when I was like, whoa, like this can be life-changing. This is really amazing. Like we can survive like this. And yeah, and I feel like as a teen, it was like always waiting for the world to end. And so it was like, this is a way of life and this is a way of survival. And yeah, and even on top of that, I felt like as I really got into like this farm world and like really understood where I was supposed to be, I realized like how important it was for children who don't have the access to organic to have nutritional food. And so for me, it was always trying to get the kids at public school districts like the best, most healthy food. And really showing him like that I grew it with love and telling him that's delicious and telling him like stories about how it grows. And so for me, it's like really about just being whole, feeding community, and really making sure that sweet kids have the nutrition that they need so that they can get the education they want and pay attention and just like do exactly whatever it is the kid wants to do when they're at school or when they're at home and being cute. But yeah, I feel like that's part of my story. That's where I'll stop.
Nice.
Thank you. I feel like there's definitely a lot of connections between like that healing aspect, connection to kids, and then motivated by that lifestyle. So thank you all for sharing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And in our conversations before too, we were talking about, the theme of the conference is cultivating restorative economies. And so, and I think like the juiciest part of every conversation I have with other young agrarians is like, how the hell are you doing this? Like, how are, like there's so many things pulling us away from agriculture, and whether it's social or economic, there are many reasons to move away from it. I'll just say that. There's so many reasons to still keep doing it, but there are still those pulls. So what effect has that sort of pull to go to town and get a job, or work somewhere that's higher paying, go to the city, move away from agricultural settings? Sort of what effect has that had on you or the people that you know or your community? Marcos, let's start with you, because I know we were talking about, like you mentioned, left a corporate job, now you're working on a ranch, and then actually at this point you're dealing with two young kids, and you're having to balance childcare and try to figure out the economics of that, because I mean we all know childcare is just super hard to find and really expensive nowadays. So sort of how do you deal with that push and that pull?
Yeah. So when I was young, before graduating high school, I had an inkling of wanting to go to college to study ag, and it was something that it seemed I couldn't find a career path that interested me, and I was put down by people saying, there's no money in agriculture and things like that. So I kind of let it slide, and it wasn't until years later, until I was, stuck in a cubicle, that kind of came back to me. So in a sense, the path was kind of I had to take a pause to find my passion, to say, just because of those social forces, that were kind of guiding me as I was growing up. As far as now balancing it all out, I think it's very important, definitely, to have a support system when you're starting out. I mean, not only through mentorship, but in my case, I do have a wife that is passionate in her own career, and we've been building our family, and that has been a kind of tug of war between balancing family life and pursuing this path, which is hard without inheriting anything or growing up in it. So but we've been by having that support system and feeling that I'm not doing this alone, it has definitely, and it has helped to motivate me even more to kind of reach those goals.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you've been involved with the Ranching for Profit School as well, right? So there's sort of a profit-driven mindset from Round River that you've picked up on from Lewis. I've just noticed by being around you guys, there is this like really calculated effort to what the operation looks like, based on the market, based on what's at the end of the day. We love agriculture, but we do need to make a profit.
Yes, Lewis, the owner of the operation I work for, it makes it a big part of his apprenticeship program to invest in the education of its apprentices. And he has sponsored me to go to the Ranching for Profit, knowing that I was interested in building my own enterprise and building my business. And it really has been very beneficial and set me in the right path.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Donne, I've interviewed you at this point, it feels like a million times, because I'm so fascinated by your story, but we did a podcast together and we talked about your community. A lot of people, the pressure is to leave. Like you said, you were like, oh, I'm going to be a lawyer, or cosmetology is what I want to do, and getting the hell out of here. And so like you're noticing that in your community. So what effect does that have, and what do those conversations look like with those kinds of folks?
Yeah, it's for sure a really tough subject. So I would say that around here, or just like rural in general, has like more of a push to like get out. It's like the social, the economic, the family of like do better, go get bigger. And so for me, like that's what I thought I wanted. And then it was like, hell no, I do not want to be in the city. I want to be at home. I want to be in the mountains. I want to breathe fresh air. And so I've seen like kids of every age, teenagers, adults, like really have that push. And I'm always like, don't do it. Like, follow your heart. If you want to be here, stay here. There's something for you to do. You don't have to leave just because someone tells you to. You really need to follow your heart. Like, know that the universe is on your side. And then really, like, I would say that I totally value college and everything you learn there, but there's also like equal value in everything that you learn at home with your parents, with your grandparents, with the neighbor who just wants to teach you like something cool. And so really like sharing that with teenagers these days so that they feel like they don't have to leave, and showing them that there's a million opportunities at home. You can harvest wood, you can raise animals, you can take care of gardens, take care of your grandparents, like have babies, do whatever feels good. But yeah, really like important so that kids don't feel like the pressure to leave, and that we are really here to create like a whole space of welcomeness and just creating memories, because at the end of the day, I feel like our ancestors, my ancestors are really proud of me for staying and for living and for knowing exactly what it is that I want and doing it the way that they've taught and passed down through many generations.
Yeah, and your program, do you guys talk sort of the equivalent of ranching for profit? Do you guys talk a lot about structuring businesses in a way that you can sustain yourself? Sort of what are there any resources that you have, or any sort of yeah, what does that training look like for your trainees?
Yeah, that's a super great question. So for my trainees, I feel like we cover a million different things, like everything from business planning and farm planning to how to like raise that vegetable or the fruit, how you're gonna securely wash and post harvest, and then take to market. Like you really need to be you're a broker. It's like being a farmer or a rancher means like you have a million different jobs, and you're growing and you're watering and you're like making sure things are okay in the hot and the cold, and really like believing that your vegetable is like 110% like the best, and making sure that everybody knows it so that they feel good when they buy it, so that they're paying you the top dollar, so that you're getting what you need to succeed and to like be sustainable in that. And even on top of that, I feel like we show people like a million different things about how to do value added products, how to make home remedies, how to sell teas, how to make wine, how to make jellies, how to dehydrate, how to really like process meat, and yeah, just all these good things that are like for sure profitable if you want to be here and just work with your hands and figure something fun out.
Yeah, that's so inspiring to know that there's so many different options for sort of sales routes. You know, there's some creativity to be had. And something I've also been thinking about is like, I think I think from the get-go, I would have appreciated knowing like if you're going to be a farmer or rancher, you must be a business person, like to some extent. It's like this is almost a better trade. I don't know. It's just like it's pretty astonishing to me how much I've learned that the piece of the pie of this job, that of having an operation, is so much more business than I ever thought. And so that's a reality that I think people just kind of brush aside, but it's definitely for me, it's becoming more and more obvious. So yeah, thank you for those answers.
All right. And then another question that we have, and this is something that, so land access, right? So land access is one of the biggest barriers for entry into agriculture, and it's so expensive to buy land to actually have ownership. And one of the questions we have for everybody is, how have you utilized relationships to gain access to land and to opportunities? And what are some guiding relationships that you've developed that have helped you have a presence on land so that you can be actively farming? And I know Samantha and Marcus, you both might have a really interesting, unique story to each of that, to your unique experiences.
Yes, I can definitely speak on that. So to talk a little bit more about the operation I work on, it is strictly a custom grazing operation. We manage around 75,000 acres. The operation itself does not own any land and does not own any cattle. So we offer a management service to the landowner and to our cattle owners. So I had the opportunity to become a client for the operation I worked through, and be able to bring in my cattle and manage them with the cattle that we manage for our other clients. And so I've been able to access land by having the opportunity through the apprenticeship to incubate a business and let it grow from, while still having that safety net, having it producing within an existing operation. And with that, there's a built-in network of other clients where we can do business transactions with, and it's been a great opportunity just to be able to access other local producers that are like-minded and that are willing to work together, and it has benefited me a lot.
Thanks for sharing that. And Samantha, would you like to share your story on land as well?
Yeah, so I have done a few different things to try and find land access or work with land access, primarily because originally my husband was not on board. So I knew that I couldn't secure a farm without him. So working with other people was kind of the way that I did that. So the organic farm that I went to, we ended up having a beautiful partnership. And when that ended, when he sold his farm out, it became a kind of a hunt for our farm or whatever. And so our deal with Steve was not something at the time I was actually seeking out. We were looking just to relocate completely. And when this offer came about, it just made sense because Steve farms regeneratively and has all along. And so my connection with him is he was my beef provider. I liked the way he grew. I had been to visit the ranch. We became friends just through that connection with the farmer client relationship. And then he knew kind of my goals and my farming practices as well. And he had tried to get me to, partner up before. And at that time, I wasn't what I thought I wanted. But then after kind of getting more into the farming, I realized I definitely needed more mentorship, equipment, things like that. Like starting this on my own would not have been possible, not only for the lack of like mentorship, but just like equipment, storage, infrastructure, like all the things that you don't think of. And it's, going back to that, like people kind of talking about ag, like it wasn't something that people were like, oh, wow, you're going to get into farming. That's great. Everybody was telling me how crazy I was. And like, why would you want to do that? It's so much work and you don't make money. And so it was nice just to have a bright spot and a mentorship of somebody who had been there and done it. He had, been through hard times and was willing to kind of share those experiences and his resources. So we kind of had a really good thing because I had some young kids, some money to invest, and he had a ranch and needed some manpower. So we just really worked that out. And we just believe that if we have kind of a common goal and a shared vision, that together we can grow cooperatively. And we just wrapped up our first season and we're still loving each other. So that's good. And we're pretty stoked about it and looking forward to all the things that we're going to add in the season going forward. But for sure, without that mentorship piece and just like shared resources, what we were able to complete this year would not have been an option. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that, both you and Marcus have kind of found access to land through a mentor that is actively, has a lot of experience under their belt, and having that to like walk alongside you as you're doing your mission. And that sounds really empowering and supportive. Donne, would you like to add anything as well?
I would just say that I feel really lucky that I do come from a family who has land. I know that just like hanging out with people who struggle to like buy land or struggle because their family sold land, I would just say that it's really important to know how important land worth is. Like, if someone asked for a piece of land, I wouldn't sell it for like $100 million because it is worth so much to me. And so really just emphasizing how important it is to take care of what you have and like not sell it.
Thanks for adding that. And I'm just I am just curious if you have a comment on this, feel free to share. If not, we can move on to the next question. But you know how Taylor pointed out that, you work with youth a lot and are trying to reiterate that, hey, like it's really important to stay here and like we have so many opportunities. And so if you had like a piece of advice that you'd have, yeah, maybe you already mentioned it, a piece of advice for youth in your community to remain connected to the land, like what might that be in like a word or so?
I would say that's a really hard one. I would say just like really fill your heart, like believe in yourself, fill your heart, because if you want to be there, you should be there. And it's going to be super successful. Like your land wants you as much as you want to be there, if that makes sense.
Thanks.
Yes, I also wanted to ask Samantha too, can you talk more about how did you meet Steve at the farmer's market, or how did you get connected with them? And when you did get connected with him, did he have a vegetable farm already ready, or did you guys have to put in more infrastructure?
Yeah, so I met Steve. So as I was like searching for what was next, like I said, I knew the farmer's market was my love. So I went and volunteered at VFP and later became the farmer's market manager. So Steve was interested in bringing his beef to market, and he came in, and that's how we originally met, and he became a vendor. And from there, and he did not have a vegetable operation. He just had beef. So he does grass finished beef, and that's just kind of historically what he's always ran on the ranch as long as it's been under his guide. So but historically they did grains, they grew barley for cores, and they did potatoes. They had several acres of potatoes up here as well. And so that's something he wanted to bring back to the homestead, but wasn't something that because he has an off ranch job as well. Like he's not full-time ranching. And so he was at capacity with his beef cows, and the land actually needed some more management than he was able to do by himself. So it was kind of, a blessing for us to come along, and we did have to put in infrastructure. So this year we did, we got in drip on all of our stuff, created beds, put in all the infrastructure and water systems, and we even developed a spring. So it's been kind of a cool thing luckily he had an idea of where he wanted to implement all these things. It was always a dream. So we just really easily came in and fit in a piece kind of for the overall ranch to take on the vegetables. And then we added in the flowers.
And I'm always curious too about the sort of logistics of the lease, and how did it work out when you was it when you put in permanent infrastructure, you paid for it? When it was impermanent, he paid for it, and then it was temporary, then you paid for it?
No, so ours was a little different. So our land on our lease, I mean, it's just a straight, like we can, we do or whatever we want. We paid for all the infrastructure and improvements. Anything that's permanent, we will leave. We did a long-term lease. And then obviously the things that can come up, would be ours. But we kind of entered our agreement a little different because by this point, Steve was essentially family before we even kind of came to this term. Like his wife had passed away, and we'd stepped in other roles and helped out. So it was kind of a different situation. So we were happy just to invest in the ranch, just to help it, so our lease is a little different, but no, for sure. We paid for all of the infrastructure to get it up and going this year. and the greenhouse and all that kind of thing as well. But most of it is, we could take it down, but I really don't foresee we got a good thing going. So we're hopeful that it's even more long-term,
Yeah. And that's cool. I think that there's a lot of ranchers and farmers who are kind of ready to transition out for one reason or another. Things are really expensive and hard right now. So it's not even like they're aging out. Sometimes they just, can't hold it all anymore. And so it's really cool when we were talking before, I think you mentioned like Steve was kind of in the direction of like, I'm not going to do this anymore. This isn't going to be agricultural, and we might even sell. Did he was he thinking about selling the place?
Yeah. So when his wife passed, because they were kind of already, it's overwhelming, right? Ag is overwhelming. It was just he and his wife, and they're running cows, and he was working off the ranch 5 days, sometimes 6 days a week. And so it was hard. And when she passed, he just felt like that was kind of the last straw. He couldn't maintain and go on without. And he said when we showed up, he would just come up the driveway and he would feel hope again, right? That the ranch could be. And so, yeah, it was kind of a cool thing. And then he has kids and that absolutely want to be a part of the ranch. They weren't at a point in their life where they were ready to make that commitment. So it's been cool to form a relationship with them because we were able to help. I don't want to say save the ranch because I don't feel, but we were able to help him keep his ranch or do whatever. So it's kind of a cool connection there, because it's like we all have the common goal of, it's a 5th generation ranch. We have to keep it alive for the, next 5 generations, and we all kind of have that same mission. And so I think it helps to,
Yeah. So my last question for all of you is sort of kind of going back to what we were talking about before with ranching for profit and other sort of tools of profit making in agriculture. So a lot of us are relying on off-farm income, whether that's ourselves, whether that's our partners or some other family member, just to sustain or some kind of advantage to it. It could be off-farm income, it could be inheriting property, it could be, I don't know, a number of things, inheriting wealth. And so I think I think everyone uses their own advantages, there's no bad advantages to have, I think. But the business still does need to sustain you at the end of the day. That money eventually, there does need to be a trajectory toward profit. So what do you need in order to continue to work in agriculture and maintain financial viability? So what do you need as a producer? And I'll give you a second if you want to think about it. Whether that's access to loans or access to different markets or any creative ideas, what would you need to be financially viable?
So for me, I think that it is like how you said before, like not only are you a farmer, you're a businessman. And so I think for me moving forward, just, some help on some of that kind of structuring, just more support. Nobody talks about that in farming, right? Like, everybody can tell you how, like to prune your tomatoes, but nobody's talking about, pricing, structuring, marketing. And I found just like coming from the outside, like ag is kind of siloed, like, and if one farmer's got it figured out, they don't want to tell the next farmer over like what they're getting for. And so, for me, it's not only learning that, but also trying to figure out how to break down some of those barriers, right? To move together cooperatively, like just with our fresh cut flowers this past week.
She cut off for any of you guys? Okay. Sometimes it's my end. Maybe she's going through a bit of a Wi-Fi drop. But if someone else wants to jump in, we'll catch her when she comes back. Marcos, you have something?
I just wanted to add that, you have to be able to plan things out and give yourself time to not just be, as like you mentioned, ranching for profit mentions the difference between working in the business versus working on the business. You a lot of people tend to get caught up in working in the business and doing the day-to-days and not give enough time to plan out and project economically and financially what a profitable enterprise looks like before just jumping in and waiting till the end of the season and seeing what you got, you know.
Right, which I think is kind of when you're getting started, you know, like when I got started, I was like, I don't know how much chicken feed a chicken eats in a day times its whole life. And so like the data to start with was so hard to come up with that planning really wasn't really even worth the time. So I think it's cool because you have the experience of having, like, on the same land that you're going to run your own operation, you have Lewis's however many years of expertise and how much grass does a cow eat, how much weight do they tend to gain. And so, yeah, that's kind of cool. So you can make those projections with actually some real data.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, and also going back to the question Audrey made about what to tell the younger generation, I'd say it's very important to find a mentor and to surround yourself with a community that kind of are like-minded and have similar goals, and that you can provide support to each other. I think those things are very important when you're trying to get into agriculture, especially if you don't have a background in it.
Yeah, and Samantha, you cut off right when you were saying something about operations being, the last one I remembered was operations being siloed and not wanting to share prices with each other. And so, yeah, do you want to continue on with your thought there?
Yeah, no, sorry about that. My internet, it's, yeah. No, just kind of, yeah, like breaking down some of those silos. And I think some standardization would help us all, right? Especially when you're in a rural area, a lot of your products are overlapping. I just feel like some of that would really help us all succeed and move forward collectively.
And Samantha, you have how many kids? 5? Oh no.
Oh,
Oh, there she is. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I have 6 kids, 3 just at home, still left at home. But yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So, and your support system is, your husband works an off-farm job, correct?
He does. Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
do you guys feel like you have a trajectory toward, I mean, you're in your first year, who knows, but and toward profitability? Like, are there any other supports that you would need as a person who's kind of trying to raise kids? And husband's off working a lot of the time, you're holding down the fort many of those days. So what other supports do you feel like you need?
Yeah, so for us, like looking forward to next year, and yeah, meeting with my accountant this past week on that trajectory. Yeah, I'm hoping for income next year. But we're really looking for interns because we found this year that like marketing was good, getting our product out, sales were good, but we had a shortage with just like actually getting the product to market, right? Like just labor and that. But we're not to the point where we feel like we can bring on a lot of employees. So we're just kind of looking at our location, and maybe we're going to do interns or woofers or things like that to try and offset that so we can get into the green, so to speak. But yeah, no, and kind of how we got into it was we did sell out our house in town, you know, like kind of took our equity and we're like, okay, this is what we're going to do to build our farm. And so whatever that, you know, looks like going forward, we'll invest. But yeah, I can see where, yeah, equipment would be nice, you know, like small equipment, things like that. But you just have to kind of slowly work up toward it.
Yeah, and I think something that I've learned recently is like, you know, the path to ownership isn't necessarily like working on farms and then one day you have a farm. Like, I think sometimes it's a disjointed path, and it could be working in town for a while, putting a bunch of money in a savings account, and then getting enough capital to put into something, or building relationships for 10 years in the community and seeing what you can do with other people, and then figuring out how it will come into place. So I think that's really cool that you guys were able to like utilize the house, selling the house, utilize that in order to push yourself into the farm. I think there's sort of this notion with young agrarians is like, I got to go straight into it with pennies. Cause like, let's be honest, you've been working on farms for 5 or 10 years. You don't have a savings account. Like, you've been getting paid minimum wage for a long time. So I think it's really important to, you know, that's actually a great strategy. to go into, to take a break or move away, figure out another situation and wait till the time is right.
Well, and it's so kind of nice because I feel like it's like you're test driving it, right? Because I'm not fully committed. Like I didn't purchase and now I feel like, oh man, I have to make a go of this. I can not only, you know, I have a few years to like really get my feet under me. I just feel like for me, it was a little bit of grace. Like I didn't feel a ton of pressure. And I could figure out the things that I like to grow and not grow or whatever, you know, kind of on with a little bit of, you know, not so much overhead, I felt like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Marcos, we've talked about your sort of your Tennessee venture of chickens and how things like went really right and really wrong in a lot of ways. So, but you were like, okay, I now know what to do from this point on.
Can you hear me? Sorry, it froze.
That's okay, no worries.
So my transition from when I went from corporate job to buying my own little property, and I just started experimenting with everything and trying to teach myself as much as I could. And most of my learning came from failure and making mistakes, and through experimenting, I was able to find what I wanted to focus on. And from there, I pursued an apprenticeship because I wanted to learn how to scale it up and how to do it and make a bigger impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Donne, do you want to answer that? The original question was sort of what do you need in order to continue to work in agriculture and pursue viability?
Yeah, it's a great question. I feel like it's a hard one to answer. I would say that for me personally, I really need people to like continue to be interested in farming so that I can like feel good and continue to teach. I feel like my heart is really like in teaching the importance of all of it, of like why we do it, how come it's so important to like have our nutrition, how come we want to share with our community. And so really having youth or anybody of any age be interested in like farming is super. I would say that I've had really good mentors, and again, like a lot of people are always like, farmers, like, why do you want to do that? But one of my mentors was like, dude, farming makes food and everybody has to eat, so it's worth a lot. Like, what do you mean it's not worth what you expect? So always like telling like, yo, everybody eats all the time, every day. And so really emphasizing that is a big deal. And then just learning again from lots of failures and trials that it takes a long time. It takes, easily 10 years to like figure out your operation, to figure out your land, the way that it wants to be watered, where it wants the exact seed that it likes, and then really figuring out like your soil. And there's just like so many different aspects. And even animals, I feel like I've totally experimented with a variety of like chickens and turkeys and ducks and sheep, and just learning like that I am so far up in the mountain that like the only thing against me is the wild animals. And just how the wild animals will come get what you're trying to raise. And then you're like, oh shit, got to start over. How did they even get in? Like all the little things that happen when you're least expecting it. But I feel like just making sure that people are interested, making sure that people know like how important it is to buy local, to support a farmer. To be in community. I feel like like over and over again, I feel like I'm teaching like this word querencia, and to have querencia or to have like a querer is like something that you love with like your whole being, your whole heart, that is not going to be taken away from you. And for me, like that is my land, that is my farming, that is my seeds. With my kids, it's what I love with my entire being. And I know that like it's just going to be passed on no matter what happens. I know that my kids know how to farm and they're going to pass it on to their kids. And so really just needing like community to always support, and feeling really lucky that I have the support. I have a neighbor who will call me like at midnight and be like, hey, there's someone in your field, what's up? And I'll be like, all right. And he has my back because I give him fresh vegetables. And so really just like sharing how sweet it is to have community and to have anybody of any age to support you. I feel like Marcos and Samantha both said how important it is to have support groups. And I just want to echo that, like, any support group, family, grandparents, yeah, everything and anything, they are the best. So yeah.
Yeah, and I was talking to another apprentice the other day, and a lot of times when you're learning to farm and ranch, you're working on different locations. So you go bounce around, kind of come different states, people go international. And I think after a long time, you realize that like you've learned those skills, but actually staying somewhere and building that querencia, that community or that support system, like that takes time in one place. Like you don't have to own the land, but you do have to stick to something and build and see what happens there. So that's something that I've learned from you. Like you just have, I see how much support you've built in that community over generations and generations. And I just feel like a lot of young people, sometimes we need to be told to like commit to something and stick it out, see what happens, like really commit to this land and learn the land and meet the people and really build that.
Yeah, it is so true. I feel like I'm so young. I'm only like 28, but I've also graduated like, at least 25, maybe 30 farmers. And each of them, like, even if they're not super successful and making the biggest money at the farmer's market, like after they graduate, I know that they're still farming to feed themselves, to feed their family, to feed their homies. And so as long as they're eating good, like I feel that I've done my job, as long as I know how to take care of the land and seeds and bugs and everything in between, that it's just accomplished.
Well, Audrey, do you have any questions to add? That's all we have on our plan here, but did you have any to add?
I do have one to add, building off of what Marcus answered to our last question. And I'm curious, if anybody wants to chime in on this, but Marcus pointed out that, there's like a difference between working on like the day-to-day business, and then there's working in your business and working on your business. And it sounded like the bigger vision and goals. And so I'm curious if anyone could talk about like, what is your process for working on your business and setting those goals and your finances for the work that you do, when I imagine the day-to-day is so busy?
I always make Marcos go first, so I'll go first this time. So for me, it's just because you can get built up in the day-to-day hype, right? Like it's exciting, it's rewarding, like taking food to the daycare kids. I love it. It fills my cup. But also I know that if I don't zoom out and kind of take a wider approach, that those opportunities won't come, right? Because we won't apply for those grants or we won't do those things. So kind of in the down season, that's the time that we really take an approach. Like right now, we're really starting to plan for 2023 of like, what do we want to do? Like what went well this season? What do we want to cut out? But I think it's that, and then continuing education, right? Like continually learning and scaling up or whatever, just, a different point of view, meeting with different people. But I think, it's just in the off season, making it a priority right as the season ends, kind of like surveying yourself, what went well, what didn't, what would I change next season? And then like, what do I want more of? So like, I know that, the daycare was my most fulfilling thing I did this season. So I'm like, okay, well now in the off season, I need to go get all of the other child centers on board with this program, and if that means me helping facilitate them with the forms or whatever, it's just kind of planning that out. I think, just really utilizing that downtime in the off season and keeping your operation somewhat seasonal, or at least for me, that's important. So I can have that time to plan and reflect for what I want in my business.
I'll add that I believe you need to be able to set time on a schedule to focus on the business tasks, which includes from strategy to economic projections to stock flow and just if you see it, if you put a dollar value on it, you can compare, doing the $10 an hour job, fixing fence and moving animals or working on the field versus, the $100 an hour job that a CEO would do, when you're sitting down in the office and really building a strategy for your business, setting, your missions and your visions and planning out what a season looks like. So you're planning for your profit rather than, waiting to the end of the season and being surprised of whether you were profitable or not. Because if you're not going to be profitable, it's good to know beforehand so you don't waste your time.
Thanks for sharing those. Donne, would you like to add to that as well? Or Taylor, do you
I
have
will
any?
Yeah, I feel like Samantha and Marcos both covered really great subjects. I would say that, like, for me, I have, December and January are my down months. And I'm super serious on like farm planning, business planning. I go as like in depth as like how many seeds need to be in the ground, in this bed, in this square inch. What's the cost of that seed? When am I going to be harvesting? And even before I plant, I feel like I need to know who the product is going to go to. So having a buyer even before it's grown is like a huge deal. And so I would say that's like always my goal, to like have the market, show them that my product is always the bomb, and just like really be happy with what I'm doing. And so I feel like down season is also really good just because it's like my little time of like relaxation, because the rest of the year I'm just like, in the field by 6, working until it's too hot, taking a break, and then back in the field when it's chill again at the end of the day. But I feel like farming is something that just is going to take a lot of time and energy. And so making sure that you have a little bit of time for yourself, time for your family, time to do something fun. I feel like there's always like the question of like, if you're farming, like, when do you take a vacation? I'm like, doesn't always happen. Like, you really have to plan that vacation, because you cannot leave your little vegetable babies or your animals alone. They need water, they need food, they need to be let in and out and air and all the good stuff. And so I feel like farming in general is just a serious plan all the time.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like you have to almost put in your calendar, like, this is the time for business planning, and then this is the time for rest. like those two things are not the same. Like, they don't all get lumped into December, January. Maybe it's like week by week, or December you do it, January you rest. It has to be delineated, or else you're just going to spend the whole time working it's like you kind of will half-ass the business planning because you're not getting rest. So you're tired, and you're kind of sick of it. So I feel like you really do have to draw that hard line of like, this is rest time, this is strategy time. Put in your calendar, like, today's the day. So yeah, let's open it up to the rest of the folks on the call. If anyone has any questions, go ahead and unmute, and you don't have to turn your camera on if you don't want. Totally understand. But if you want to unmute and ask a question, you can also throw it in the chat too. So we'll give you just a second to think of a question if you have one. Hey, Sarah, you came in at a funny moment where we're asking folks if they want to ask a question to the panelists. We just finished up all of our questions that we prepared. I feel like Shannon.
Excellent. I'm sorry. I'm actually just here because I thought that there might have been a technical difficulty.
Oh, so we're good.
I'll just pop in and leave again. Sorry.
No worries. Go eat dinner. Okay, hey Emily. She said, hello, what sorts of resources have you accessed as far as grants? Does anybody utilize grants? Donna, you guys probably do, don't you?
Yeah, so I am happy to share that we work very closely with the USDA office and the Natural Resource Conservation. And so for me, they've totally hooked me up with hoop houses, with irrigation tools, pipes, drip tape, really cool soil, I'm like, what are they called? Soil water readers, where you get to like check how moist your soil is. I feel like they're super sweet because you really get what you need if you're a serious farmer. The only thing that you really have to like be aware of is that they will come and check out your farm. You're kind of you're in, I don't even know what to call it, in a contract with them for about like 2 years. And so there's 1 year where they hook you up, you get everything set up. And then the second year is where you really need to prove that you're like doing something good, growing vegetables, growing an orchard, doing whatever it is you said you were doing. And so after the 2 years, you're like able to grow whatever it is you want. But yeah, I feel like it was very easy to get hoop houses and the things that I did.
Marcos, have you guys ever received grants? You guys probably do NRCS projects for infrastructure, right? Equip.
No, not in my experience. We haven't been. The land is owned by the state land board, and so those are handled through the land board. Yeah.
Okay. Samantha, do you guys have grants quite yet?
We just applied with NRCS to get on the list for the hoop house program, and got accepted. So yeah, hopefully next year we'll get a hoop house. And then it's not a grant, but we did use the Department of Wildlife for our guarding around our fencing to keep the deer out. They will provide that if you provide the labor. So that was a really nice cost savings for us to get that fencing provided. And then the grant that we do through the daycare, the feeding the kids, that is a farm to child grant that we're just part of, that we collectively applied for this one. But going forward, I think that we're going to try and help other daycares, and it's just where they can secure the funds to work with a farm directly to purchase local food.
Awesome. I think I saw Shannon come off of mute for a second, or video. Shannon, did you still have a question?
Yeah, I do. Thank you. I also just want to say that I am using Zoom on my phone for the first time today, so it was kind of difficult to figure out how to work all the same features. But yeah, thank you. My question is about how all three of you have found ways to manage risk in your business, especially during the very beginning stages of it. I think, as somebody thinking about a future ag business, it's a little daunting to think about all of the various forms of risk that are inherent in this work and that are also inherent in owning and operating a small business.
Okay, I'll get started. In my case, I'd say to be able to start your own enterprise as part of a bigger enterprise where all the infrastructure's already been developed, and you have access to mentorship and already a system in place. It kind of gives you a little more safety as you're growing. And other than that, I'd say just to really invest in your education and just preparing yourself to have the confidence and the tools to kind of achieve those business goals.
I would say that having a plan is like your first thing. And just knowing that you can plan until you're like blue in the face. But at the end of the day, I feel like Mother Nature is really the scariest thing because you never know when you're going to have a flood or a fire or a hailstorm or a million grasshoppers are going to come over and eat all your veggies. So just being prepared, I would say, is the biggest step, but also there's really cool insurances in case there's any type of accident on the farm. I feel like I've had insurance for all the years that I have been a farm manager or a farm teacher. And one of the only accidents we've had is like someone hit their toe with a hammer while we were putting up the hoop house. And so I'm really glad that that's the only big accident so far. But really making sure that like everyone is aware and having rules for your farm. I feel like at my farm, I'm like, okay, everybody has to have good shoes on. Everybody can only like, yeah, just having a really good set of rules so that you have a good safety protocol. And that is where I will end.
I kind of have a question for either of you guys building on that. Do you ever build contingency plans like into your yearly plan? I mean, you can't predict what catastrophic, say, pandemic or supply chain issue will occur, but is that a thing? Like, do you have plan B, plan C, plan D in place, or is it kind of just rough? Or is it kind of just a plan that has enough flexibility in it so that you can lose a decent amount of money and you'll be okay?
Yeah, I feel like for us, it's, we plan loosely and, trying to, but my husband works for the government and he's in asset management. So I feel like we have a chart for everything, right? But yeah, it's just that, like how Donne said, it's that having a plan, but also realizing that nothing's really going to go as planned and just jumping in. Like I tell friends all the time, they're like, I don't know how you grow, or like, and I'm like, you just plant it and give it love and it will grow. Like, I know that's not the case for everything, but really on a lot of things, that's how you just have to do. You just have to jump in, and it's so much trial and error. But that's also kind of like the cool thing I find about farming, right? It is trial, like something you can find ways that work for you that might not work for your neighbor because everybody's conditions are different. So just kind of, having that plan, but also realizing those are just kind of sideboards that you've set for your season. Is how we approach it, at least.
I have heard it said that plans are useless, but planning is essential. You definitely.
No, I feel like there's a lot of wisdom coming right now.
Was too strong for Zoom.
Oh my gosh, it broke Zoom. Oh, there he's back again.
Yeah, I'm back. I'm not sure where I cut off.
That's okay. You actually just cut off right after you said plans are useless, but planning is not. Something way more profound than that.
Plans are useless, but planning
is essential. Okay, now he's broken up again. Dang it. No.
There is a question by Richard in the chat. I don't know if we want to jump to that while we wait for Marcus.
Sure. And there's also one before that, I think, too, by Mark. Okay. Are you back? There he comes back. There we go.
I'm afraid to start talking.
Well, try one more time, and if not, we'll skip over you and jump to somebody else.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that definitely planning is extremely important. Of course, you have to keep in mind that things will change, but as long as you have kind of your targets and your goals, and once you're deviating from your plans, you kind of know how to adjust. And in the case of livestock management, there's definitely things you can do to mitigate risk, things like drought planning and using your planned grazing charts and your cash flow projections, and all of that will definitely help you be more confident in your planning.
Mhm. So we can jump to this question in the chat. I'm not sure if this is a shorthand for someone's name, but it's BR. Is anyone growing any fruits? I'm in a cold climate and would like to start fruit farming for tropical fruits and would like some advice. Don't you guys kind of have some fruits up there, don't you?
We do have a fruits. We are also in a pretty cold climate. I don't have any experience with tropical fruits, but I know that we do have some really awesome apple trees, strawberries, blackberries, blueberries, goji berries. All your berries are usually pretty happy in colder climates. I do have a friend pretty close to here who actually has a climate controlled greenhouse, and he grows like oranges and grapefruits and pomegranates. And so I think that's totally doable if you have some type of structure. Yeah, I feel like fruits are a little more difficult just because you need to know like how to prune. They take a little more soil love. They kind of deplete soil, and so you need to give them like a lot of goodies. But that's what I have to share.
Cool. Let's go into Richard's question. What skills have you learned that, sorry, that's my dog. What skills have you learned that help you resolve conflicts with others? Ooh, that's a great question.
So here where we kind of have a lot of decision makers in our circle, right? When you're working on somebody else's property and multiple enterprises, and that can be hard, right? There's definitely different values, but kind of out the gate, I am a firm believer in good contracts make good partnerships, but outside of that also, just like we kind of made a thing that everybody, we assume positive intent on everybody's, and good communication. So like we have a weekly farm meeting where even if we don't have anything to discuss, it's just like a Sunday dinner that you would have with your family, right? To really just keep it so no problems get to be the big problem. We're handling it at the lowest level possible so we can all stay on the same page. And so far that's been, worked out really well for us. And we just try to really, and we also like, because we're kind of like family, we kind of know like these are their, like, okay, haying season is not when you want to approach Steve about something, right? Because he's going to be, like you kind of learn like, okay, these are your things. And just respecting that, right? How different people communicate and how they do business and kind of just working with that. But the assumed positive intent has gotten us a long way, because sometimes it can be your first frustration. Like if you can't go out or find a tool or, oh, they took, like, it's like, okay, let's not go there right out the gate. Let's just assume. And just, yeah, kind of keeping everything, deflecting it at the lowest level possible, we found has been good.
I would say that something I've learned with working with a lot of different people is just that nobody is like higher than the other. Even myself, I feel like I am always open to learn. Like I do not know everything. I am always open to learn. You be my teacher. So just being open, being honest, and really even sometimes I usually start crews with like a set of rules of like, all right, we're not going to yuck each other's yums. Like we're here to have fun. We're here to learn. We're here like just all the good stuff that makes sense so that nobody feels like they're starting with a bad attitude. And then sometimes it is hard because you have to call someone out, and just knowing that calling someone out has to be done nicely and with lots of love. And even when things are hard, that things can always be better. So trying to get to something that makes sense and feels good for everybody.
Do we have any other questions we'd like to ask Marcus, Donne, or Samantha?
All right, well, we might leave it there. Oh, sorry, one more. Okay, I'll wait for you. I'm going to type in an email address if anyone has any questions about the new agrarian program. Audrey, if you want to do the same, and Donne, if you want to do the same. If anyone has any questions about any of our programs or wants to get a hold of somebody in this presentation, feel free. So there's ours. Now we can answer any questions about program or about the folks who are here today. Awesome, thanks guys. And then our last question is, do you have a walk-in cooler for preserving your produce? I would assume so, Donne and Samantha, you too, yeah.
Yeah, we do have a walk-in cooler, but I mean, I've done it without, so it's not like a hindering step in starting your production. You just have to plan your harvest a little differently, so it's doable. So I wouldn't want to discourage anybody, like if you don't have a cooler, not to start. But yeah, having a cooler definitely helps with the harvesting schedules and preserving of the fruit for sure.
Yeah, I feel like coolers are super helpful. I will echo what Samantha said, like when you don't have a cooler, you really need to plan to like harvest really early, wash and get to market like within the few hours that you have, so things are super fresh and pretty. And I will share that like we built our walk-in cooler by hand with like a plan off the internet for, I want to say maybe like $2,000, $3,000. We've had it for a few years now. I would say that there's these really awesome, cool machines that are called cool bots. And so they're sweet because they help you trick an AC unit into like being a fridge. And so it shoots out a lot of cold air. So you don't have to buy anything like super serious or really expensive. And I would say, yeah, that it's really my go-to. Cool bots and plans off the internet. And if you are a builder and you feel very, very successful, I would say like build something, even if it's small, like a 10 by 12. I feel like I have a 10 by 12 right now, and it's always full, but it's always like doing its job.
All right, sounds good, everyone. Thank you so much for attending today. Just want to give a special thank you to all of our panelists. This took a lot of time to plan, and really appreciate you guys taking the time. This is a busy time of year, so thank you so much. Thank you to Audrey and the folks at New Mexico Acequia Association for being here and giving all this effort. And thank you all to everyone who showed up. We're super happy to have you and excited about the rest of this week, webinar week, and hopefully we'll see you next week in Denver at the Regenerate Conference at the National Western Center. So hope everyone has a good night. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Good night.